I don't want to create a relationship in which someone is afraid of me. They're afraid to talk to me. They're afraid to communicate their ideas or their thoughts to me or their concerns, right? I don't want that. I don't want someone to have that perspective, because if I think if it gets to that point, then I've lost the room and I've lost that person. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Beyond the Surface podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in with me once again. This particular podcast episode, I wanted to talk about leadership. I think at some point we are all going to face a role in which we are leaders, right? So whether you are in a serious relationship or you're married and you're leading your spouse, whether you're a parent and you're leading your children or your family, obviously in the workspace, if you're a leader there, maybe you do some volunteer work, wherever it may look like, at some point we're all going to find ourselves leading others. And unbeknownst to some of you guys, you might be already in that position. You just don't know it, right? Someone may be watching you from afar and you're mentoring them from afar. And so I think at some point we're all going to step into this space of leadership. And leadership is not about control. It's not about micromanaging. It's not about leading with fear. It's not about demanding loyalty from the folks that are led, that are being led by you. Real leaders don't grip tighter when when people want to think for themselves, right? They guide, they listen, and they empower the individual to make decisions for themselves, to think for themselves, right? To expand their knowledge. And because when people feel safe and they feel heard, they grow. And when people grow, everyone wins, right? And so you guys are probably seeing this firsthand, where it's like maybe you yourself have been in an environment in which, your direct upline or your mentor, your leader, whatever, really put the shackles on you, so to speak, and it more so directed you as to what you should be doing, what you're going to do, and really place fear within you to not be able to express yourself freely or feel comfortable saying something if something's going wrong. And obviously, as you guys know, it hurts the relationship. It hurts the dynamic with whatever it is that you're doing. And so, and on the flip side of that, when you do have someone that is leading from a great space of being open-minded and willing to communicate and have a conversation, when that person feels empowered to do those things, if we're talking about, work-related or relationships and leadership, that person's production skyrockets, right? That relationship, that dynamic builds even stronger. And so, I've been firsthand, I've seen it myself, where on both sides of the spectrum, where I've had great leaders and, I've grown and I've wanted to work harder for them and do more for them. And then I've had leaders where it's just like, no, I don't want, our relationship is crappy. I'm just here to make a paycheck. And it just kind of ruins, that relationship. It kind of ruins that opportunity. But there's a massive difference between, obviously being in charge and being a leader. So in this episode, we're going to be unpacking what makes someone worth following, right? And why the best leaders don't lead with ego, they lead with trust, right? Because I've seen leadership done the wrong way, as I just said, where, people make assumptions, they shut down conversations, and they act from fear instead of like curiosity, right? And what I mean by that is that they're afraid of what you may say to them. They themselves are afraid of giving up control, is usually what kind of takes place. They have a particular set of rules, guidelines, boundaries that they have in place, which is smart, right? That's a good thing to have in place. But I think they become so indoctrinated with what they want that it's either their way or the highway, right? And I'm sure we've all had leaders in the workspace that have done that. I'm sure some of you guys have probably experienced that even within the personal relationships within your household, where someone is very controlling, very demanding, and it's done a certain way. And that just reminds me of exactly what kind of leader I never want to be. For me, when I see leadership, I see an open relationship. I see an openness. I see a freedom to express myself. I see, the ability to have a conversation. If I have, if my spouse doesn't agree with an action or a belief or whatever it is, all right, if there's a disagreement about something, I want to have the conversation. I am opening up the dialogue willingly to understand their viewpoint, for them to understand my viewpoint, and then to see if we can come together and come to a decision that works best for both of us, right? Or maybe there just needs to be change on my side because I've gotten so direct with what I deem is right or wrong, right? So, but again, ultimately, the goal within that relationship is to come together, right? And to build together and to grow together. And so if both parties are willing to do that, then it does create that freedom to have, to express yourself and to have that open conversation and to build, strong relationships and be curious about things. But if it's closed off and it's not mutually beneficial and one side is demanding, it's either there or the highway, it makes it very, very hard for that relationship to strive. And then obviously it puts a lot of stress and anxiety and fear on the person that's being led, because they feel like, they feel trapped and they feel like they don't have a voice. And if they say something, there's going to be repercussions. And they, if it's in a work relationship, they may get fired, right? Or they may get reprimanded or something along that nature. And so I think leadership is a very important role to be in, whatever dynamic that looks like for you. And you have to be, if you want a relationship to thrive, if we're talking about the workplace and you want your coworkers or people that are following you to be more productive, to show up on time, to work hard, whatever, you got to create an environment in which, yes, there is guidelines, there's boundaries, and everyone understands what that means, and everyone is willing to work within those guidelines and those boundaries. But you also got to give that individual the freedom to express themselves and the freedoms to, communicate any concerns or gripes that they may have without them fearing that you're going to do something to them for saying something, right? Or if it's in a point where, maybe they don't agree with the direction of things are going, right? Maybe it's no longer a right fit for them. Be curious as to what that individual is thinking if you're the leader, right? Because it's all about creating space where people feel free to speak up, free to ask questions. And, if it's something in which, one of your employees feels that it's not a good fit for them anymore, then just out of curiosity, right? Out of just basic kind human nature, just, John, what's going on? Like, talk to me. Like, what are you thinking? And have that dialogue. For me, leadership is not, for me anyway, right? Like, I'm here to guide you as a leader. I'm here to guide you. I'm here to, because I think a lot of the times the folks that are being led, right, they may sometimes get very tunnel vision, right? So they may have an objective that they only can see. And as a leader, it's my job to give them insight as to what I'm seeing from an outside perspective, right? So maybe the person that's being led is only seeing straight, and I'm able to see in the side view of, okay, what could possibly go wrong? What could happen? What's pros and what's cons? And as a leader, it's my job to convey that to you. Hey, John, this is what I'm, based on what you told me, this is what I'm seeing from my perspective. Have you thought about these things? Has that, does that make sense of what I'm saying or what I'm seeing? Hopefully by me sharing that with you, sharing my advice with you, right? Giving you my opinion on what I believe may be the best route for you based on what you're telling me and what you're wanting. This is just my opinion on that. But at the end of the day, I want you to be in the best position that feels right for you. And as a leader, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with, if a person wants to walk away or they disagree or whatever the dynamic is, I'm okay with being able to give my opinion and allowing that person to choose what's best for them, because I'm not your master. I don't own you. I don't control you. You're an adult. You know what I mean? Like, you do what you need to do. Do what's best for you. I'm not here to tell you what you should and should not be doing. Now, I'm going to do my job as a leader in any dynamic, personal or professional. I'm going to share with you what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing and potential obstacles for you. But I'm only giving you more ammo, right? I'm giving you ammo to make the best decision for you and your family and whatever that looks like for you. And so again, I'm not here to punish anyone. I'm not here to punish someone for doing what's best for them. I think that's crazy. I've been in that position before where I've been punished for doing what's best for me or having an opinion. I'm here to support you. I'm here to guide you on whatever path or journey you are. I'm here to give you clarity, right? I'm here to give you clarity and not control. You know what I mean? So, like I said, if someone leaves under my leadership, I want them to leave better than when they came. Ultimately, is what it looks like, right? And I'm not shaming them. I'm not making them feel small for the decision that they've came with or that they've decided to do. So again, that's how I believe leadership should be communicated. How I think it should be delivered. It should be built on respect, not fear. And so, as you guys know, I always leave you guys with some takeaways, so that way you guys can start implementing this stuff here in your life directly, immediately, right away. So the first takeaway that you guys want me to jot down for your notes is that great leaders, they create safety, not silence, right? So as I just previously discussed, I want to create an environment, again, whether it's in the household with my children or wherever I'm at, where it's an open space, right? And people are free to choose to do whatever they think is necessary and right for them. I don't want to create a relationship in which someone is afraid of me. They're afraid to talk to me. They're afraid to communicate their ideas or their thoughts to me or their concerns, right? I don't want that. I don't want someone to have that perspective, because if it gets to that point, then I've lost the room and I've lost that person. And ultimately that person, if we're going to talk about in the workplace, that person's going to end up leaving, right? They're going to end up quitting. They're going to end up asking to be transferred to a different team, whatever that dynamic is, right? If I'm in a personal relationship and my spouse, she's going to end up potentially resenting me at some point, right? Or, she's going to feel not heard, and it's just going to create this clash between us. And the next thing you know, we're headed down the road of divorce, right? So I want the relationship to be that of an open one. Because I think the best leaders, they do invite dialogue, like honest dialogue. Like, you guys have probably heard of this, like the open door policy, like, right, my door is always open, come on in, we can have a conversation, right? Even when it's super uncomfortable. I think those are the best dialogues to have, when it's honest and it's truthful, because I think both sides can then spill their guts, and they can alleviate the stress and the worry and the fear that they have bubbling up inside them, right? And they can come to you, and you can come to them with their concerns, your concerns, and then we can create a space in which a solution is warranted, and it helps both sides. And I mean, the second takeaway I would tell you is that, and empowerment is greater than ego, right? Empowerment is over ego, right? It's not about keeping people dependent upon you. If you are a leader in the workspace and you are leading people based on your ego and making them feel like like they can't be successful without you, you're doing it wrong. You're already leading from the wrong place, right? You're leading from your own ego. You're leading from your own desires that you want for yourself. You may say that you want this person to be successful and succeed and do all these things, only if they're following your every single word and they're doing exactly what you're telling them to do, and they're not stepping outside of the boundaries and the guidelines you set forth, and they're not listening to anyone else, right? Like, that's not, in my opinion here, how a leader should be leading other people. It's about helping your individuals, the people that are following you, helping them become strong enough to decide what's best for their future. Even if the path means that it's somewhere else, right? If the path is not with you, but yet you want this person to be successful and to succeed, and that path is with someone else or it's somewhere else, then as a leader, bro, you should do all you can to push that person towards whatever is going to make the most sense for them, whatever is going to get that person whatever it is that they need, right? And I know a lot of the times where individuals, they may not know what's right for them. They may see a shiny object and they think that that's the right place, that's where they should be. And I've always been a believer that people need to make their own mistakes in order for them to learn and grow, right? And so I'm not going to control that person into telling them, "Oh, you're wrong. The avenue that you're looking at is not going to work. You shouldn't be doing that. You should be doing this." I'm not gonna say that. Now, I'm not gonna say it in that way, right? I'm not gonna say it in that way. I'm gonna give you my perception of what it is that you're looking at doing, transitioning to, wanting, or whatever. And I'm going to give you, those pros and cons of what that could look like for you. But at the end of the day, I'm going to support your decision, because only you know if it's a right or wrong decision when you go through it and it turns out to be right or wrong, right? And I'm never gonna close off a relationship just because you don't agree with me or you don't think my way is the right way. That's just not who I am as a person, and that's not definitely who I'm going to be as a as a leader. The third takeaway for you guys to write down for your notes here is that influence is greater than authority, right? So people may follow you because you have a title, because you're a senior, whatever, senior director, or you're whatever your title is. They may follow you for that for a while, but they're not going to follow your example long term. They're not going to follow you long term because of your position within the company or because you have a certain title that's different from theirs. Real leadership is earned through consistency, through humility, through presence, not by position, right? I'm up here, you're down here, you're my subordinate, you should be listening to me. Everything I say goes. Everything I say is right. You're wrong because we're not here. We're not on equal terms. We're not on equal levels. And I just think that's the worst way to lead an individual or a group or your kids or your family, right? Obviously, now, what I'm saying is keep this in mind too. Like, every dynamic, again, as I mentioned, is going to have boundaries and it's going to have guidelines, right? So if you're a parent of children, you're not going to have no guidelines or not any boundaries set up, right? Because that creates chaos, right? There's got to be rules in order to the household, to the dynamic of the relationship, of course, right? And everyone's going to be on the same page about what those are, and everyone's going to be in agreement with those. But it's within those boundaries and those guidelines that the real dynamic is cultivated, right? The real relationship is bred between you and your children, so to speak. Where it's giving them the freedom to express themselves without feeling any remorse or any repercussion that they may think will come of them having those conversations with you, whether it be about a disagreement about whatever, right? And so that's where the real relationship comes from. And it's not about my position of being your dad, or you being the mom, that you're going to do exactly what I say, right? Now, again, guidelines and boundaries are in place that we know that, okay, yeah, there is a level to it, right? Where in that scenario where you're a parent and and there's a child, right? There's a level to it, right? A level of respect and understanding, but that also goes both ways, right? You can't demand respect, demand trust, and then turn around and not give it back. You know what I mean? Like it's two-faced. So just keep that in mind, that influence is greater than authority, right? If you are someone who is kind-natured and you lead by example, and how you interact and what the actions that you take and the things that you say and think, you also turn around and you can implement that and people can see that, the long-term effect of that is that they're going to follow you to the end of time. They're going to follow you to the end of time. They're going to have more trust in you, right? They're going to question you less because of how you lead them, right? Rather than a dictatorship, you're going to give them a democracy, so to speak. You're going to invite them to have a say. So again, I just think that it's super important. And as you guys proceed in your lives, you're going to find yourself in a space where you're going to be a leader, knowingly or unknowingly. And so, just do the best you can. Be the best leader that you can. Lead folks how you want to be led, right? Lead people how you want to be led. Do you want to be dictated to? Do you want to be undermined and be told to hold your tongue and to just listen and do what you're told? Like, is that what you want for yourself? If it's not, then I'm assuming the people that are following you probably don't want the same thing, right? And so if you don't want it for yourself, then you need to lead how you would want to be led towards others. Let's be real. Not every situation calls for freedom and flexibility when it comes to leadership, right? So I'll give you some examples. If we're stuck in a jungle and our survival depends on moving fast and thinking swiftly, that's not a time for roundtable discussion. That's not a time for give me your opinion for the most part, right? If we don't do this, we're going to die. So we need to go. We can, there's no time for discussions on, hey, I think we should just stay here. And no, someone's got to take the reins and someone's got to lead by example, right? And someone's going to be like, listen, dude, we don't have time for roundtable discussions. This is life or death situation, right? And then when someone takes charge clearly and decisively, because lives are at stake, right? So you got to do that. Those moments require firm leadership. You guys notice the difference, right? But most of our lives we're not in a jungle. It isn't a jungle situation, right? In everyday situations, whether it's, like I said, business, family, relationships, the stakes aren't life or death. In those situations, those moments, rigid control does more harm than good, right? Firm control of this is how it's going to go typically does more harm than good in those situations, right? Where life and death is not apparent. And so I think one thing that great leaders do is they learn to adapt, right? They know in every scenario when to be more firm, when direction is needed and warranted, but they also know when to step back and analyze the situation and allow others to grow, right? And to trust others' growth. And so I think that's what makes up a great leader. So I do want to ask you guys, would the people in your life right now, would they say that you are a safe leader? Would they say that about you if you asked them? Are you leading with openness or are you leading with control? Right? Do people feel heard and empowered around you? These are great questions to ask, especially if you're in a leadership role. Ask your subordinates, ask your coworkers, ask your spouse, ask your kids, right? Ask those questions. How do they perceive you as a leader? Maybe there's some areas in which you can do better. Maybe there's some areas in which you can change. Maybe that'll give you clarity and awareness. Oh, okay, I'm doing a good job, or I need to pivot. Especially if you're a leader and you're not getting results from the people that are being led. If you're not getting results from them that you like, then obviously there's something going on. There's a conversation that needs to be had. It might be with you in that relationship. It might be with them and what they got personally going on. It might be something with the job itself, and who knows what it might be. But the point is, you're never going to know as a leader if you don't have that open dialogue and give them the opportunity to express of what's going on, right? So again, leadership is not about holding on and that firm grip. It's about showing up. It's about leading from the front. The best leaders don't force people to stay. They really don't. They give people the freedom to exit, right? They give people the freedom to think for themselves, right? They build something worth staying for ultimately when you do that. So, if you're a leader, this hit home for you, please share this with someone that's either stepping into a leadership role or maybe reflecting on how they lead others. in any dynamic. If you're watching this on YouTube, again, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on a podcast, please leave a review, hit that like button. I'd love for all of us to grow together on this podcast here, Beyond the Surface. As I always tell you guys, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, guys. Peace out.